epigram. And this epigram points really to the trajectory of what is to come in the poem. It's a quote from a poet by the name of Arthur Rimbaud, and it's from 1871. Now, in 1871, that's the year of the Paris Commune, a time of great upheaval in France and in Paris. Rimbaud was a poet who was 17 years old at that time when he wrote this. It's just a short little thing I want to read as a prelude, and then I'll get into the actual manifesto. I is an other. So what if a piece of wood discovers it is a violin? If brass wakes up as a bugle, it is not its fault at all. By demanding the impossible, we become impossible in our demands. Make no mistake about it, we demand an end to all forms of domination and insist on the realization of poetry in everyday life. Only by erasing the artificial dichotomy between dream and reality can we sever the ties that bind revolutionary demands to a miserablest search for the best of all possible rulers. What is more humiliating than to be ruled? What is more beautiful to a surrealist than the shattered glass of reality? All power to the insurgent imagination. The unfurling of the black flag of anarchy augurs all the wonders that can be created when subservience dies and the impossible is unleashed. What is more debilitating than to follow orders? What is more inspiring to an anarchist than the refusal to obey? Mutiny is a collective form of refusal in which the intensity of the fevered desire for liberty breaks the authoritarian chains of duty and coercion in the convulsive heat of mutual aid. Impatient to emancipate ourselves as soon as the uncharted land of our dreams hoves into sight, we don't petition the captain to take us ashore, we simply jump ship. Swimming to shore, we are swiftly carried along by the billowing waves of the social revolution. The splendid winds of change, blowing at gale force as if in harmony with the intensity of our desires, even cause the brass ornaments on deck to reverberate wildly in a jamboree bugle call of marvelous freedom. Looking back, we see the floundering ship of state, from which we have only narrowly escaped with our lives, suddenly hit a hidden reef and explode into a shower of debris. In awe, we watch the flying splinters of wood transform themselves, as if by alchemy, into 1,000 screaming violins. In spontaneous freedom, they improvise with the aeolian harp sound of the wind. The ocean's leonine roar and the seagulls' incessant cries, all vibrating together in the surreal key of anarchy. Reality is no obstacle now, as the impossible looms up before us on the horizon, like the purple aura that encircles the moon, in a subversive halo of mad love. We dance all night in sweaty abandon on the beach, swim naked in the coolness of the moonlight, then fall asleep in each other's arms, dreaming of anarchy and surrealism, the impossible compass points of a world turned upside down. Okay, so this brings me to Utopia. Because if this sounds like a utopian scenario to some of you, perhaps we need to explore a little bit the idea of utopia as poetry in motion. rather than its usual connotation as a fixed blueprint for an ideal society. So I wrote a piece called Lost Utopias that I'm going to refer to in this, and that's where I'm going to end it after that. Oscar Wilde, who not everybody is aware of the fact that Oscar Wilde was an anarchist. Oscar Wilde once famously said that any map that doesn't include utopia on it isn't even worth looking at. But what if utopia is unmappable, seen only in fleeting glimpses, merging and submerging by chance like an island in the fog? Invisible most of the time, but yet always present in our imaginations, like a portal to another reality. In a surrealist sense, we can see utopia as André Breton saw beauty, quote, Utopia. An island where all possible enticements use their powers of fascination, but a devilishly floating island, indeed, whose course has not been plotted on any map. End quote. It is in this regard that I now recount Pauline Johnson's story of the Lost Island, which I read in a well-thumbed copy of Legends of Vancouver, which was sent to me by my surrealist friends Franklin and Penelope Rosemont. And when they found out that I was living in nearby to where Vancouver is located. So a few words about Pauline Johnson, who wrote the book, are in order here. Being of native and European descent, her father was George Johnson, who was the head chief of the Six Nations Indians, and her mother was Emily S. Howells, who was of English descent. Johnson's status was then that of intermediary between two cultures. She spoke for her father's people, explaining and representing them to her mother's, and she took on that interpretive role consciously. Johnson lived the last 3 years of her life in Vancouver on Howe Street, within walking distance from Stanley Park, where her ashes were buried in 1913. While in Vancouver, she had learned many legends from her friend, Squamish chief Joe Capilano. They conversed in the Chinook tongue, and she first published his accounts of the mythic origins of the city and its environs in serial form in the Vancouver Daily Province newspaper. In one of Capilano's stories, an old man sees a vision of the coming of the Europeans and the founding of the city of Vancouver. He asks the great Sakolsky Chicago, the creative figure, to keep his courage, bravery, and fearlessness alive after his death, so that his people would be strong enough to endure and overcome the white man's rule. And so this is a quote from that story that is told by Pauline Johnson, but she's hearing it from Joe Capilano. Chanting his medicine songs, he entered his canoe and paddled through the colors of the setting sun. When night fell, he came to an island with misty shores of great gray rock. On its summit, tall pines and firs encircled like a king's crown. As he neared it, he felt all his strength, his courage, his fearlessness leaving him. He could see these things drift from him onto the island. They were as clouds that rest in the mountains, gray-white and half-transparent. He paddled back to the Indian village. He told them to go and search for the island, where they would find all his courage, his fearlessness, and his strength living forever. He slept then, but in the morning he did not wake. Since then, our young men and our old have searched for the island. It is there somewhere, up some lost channel, but we cannot find it. End of quote. Is it then the nature of utopian desire to end in stillborn dreams, always lost, just beyond reach? Are we doomed to suffer the torturous fate of Tantalus? Or is the search for utopia itself connected to its realization? Because in the ensuing process of dreaming of the impossible, we might discover our atrophied powers of refusal in relation to the miserablism of the present reality. These powers are always there waiting for us on the elusive lost island. Or we might realize that being lost is sometimes the only way to find what we're looking for. The lost island is not a physical location within a statist context, but an imaginal reference point, one that counters passivity with resistance and juxtaposes the bountiful economy of the gift to the parsimonious economy of wage slavery. These islands might be lost, but they continue to burn brightly in our imaginations. They have not permanently disappeared, and their continued existence, though the way to them might be uncertain, is a cause for renewed strength and inspiration rather than despair. Finding them is the utopian quest. Undertaking the journey through the shrouded mists of history is the courageous path of the utopian warrior. Thank you. I'll take any questions.